it's Life with Coach Sham, and you have joined us on Conversations for the Culture, Kingdom Edition. So today we have a person who's very dear to me, my best friend, Mick.
Hey guys.
Hey guys.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Of course.
As I was trying to figure out who to bring on the podcast, I definitely wanted to bring you because I think our dynamic is so interesting, and I think we both get so many questions about our
best
friendship.
Friends?
Yes, I think in my spaces and your spaces, we don't have too many places that like overlap, and people are always just like, "How are y'all friends? How are y'all friends?" So, what are your thoughts?
I think me and you became friends because the first thing that I think that works for us is understanding. And so I think we don't really get into the dynamics of like we don't get into each other's lives too much. We don't pry at like the deep diving of things. I feel like I tell you what I want to tell you, you tell me what you want to tell me, and we kind of interact in that way. But as far as us being friends, we just have an understanding about one another that just makes sense. It just it's kind of like if you call me and I answer and we just look at each other, I'd be like, friend, you'd be like, friend. I'd be like, you know?
I think we've evolved to that. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think over the years, as we've aged, I think we got to the place where now we, kind of feel each other when when we need to. I think as you age with friendships, you don't have to be on the phone 24/7. I think we
if
know
I go
that,
2-3 days without talking or texting you, I don't feel like you're no longer my friend.
Yeah. I think we've
always
always been.
Yeah.
We've always had that.
That's why
dynamic.
I think like understanding is the undermining issue with a lot of people's friendships. Okay. It's like you got to go into a friendship with understanding as just like a person. Understanding will just
I want to talk about how we got there, though, because I think it's easy to kind of point out. I
didn't know if you wanted to talk about
it. May not work for other friendship dynamics, but I kind of want to get into how we got here. So, people,
I'm gonna let you start.
Tend to think like, how did they cross paths? How did they become friends? They kind of look at us as if we're like night and day, but we're really like ebony ivory.
Very much.
A lot of times. And so me and Mick became friends back when I used to work in nightlife, which I think unless you knew me during that season of time to know that I worked there, you probably don't know that I worked there. And I think
I was more open about it and you weren't.
I think when I start working in nightlife, it's before your
way
time,
before,
right?
But I'm saying you still weren't just like out
because
there.
I think it was the culture of the time.
Yeah,
and with us talking about,
you tell me all the time I turned the nightlife around.
It was different. So what I will say is, I feel like even in the name of the show, Conversations for the Culture, I think at the time, I started working in nightlife when I was in college. I know it sounds very stereotypical. It sounds like one of the movies where it's like, you ain't dancing your way through college. I did start, dancing and doing things like that when I was in college. And I was very serious about getting through school and different things like that. And I started working in nightlife back before the Mickeys and the Black Chinas and the Amber Roses. I was working in nightlife back when people were still wearing wigs and hiding their identity. I know it sounds cliche, but that is the time that
That's
happened.
Your truth, though.
That is, that's my truth. And so I stepped away from it, when I had a kid, and the culture of that area completely changed. And at that time is when you kind of stepped into the scene and you started dancing.
I was bringing different outfits in and different shoes.
It was a very different time for what I had been introduced to.
And I was just one of those girls that I came into the strip club and I was proud of what I did, and a lot of people weren't proud. And I understand the dynamic now. I wish I wasn't as proud because I feel like what I'm known for has came to me now that I'm like not in that light. I get why people hid the fact that they were dancers. I was just more proud of it. So I was taking pictures in the background and just, popping my shit. But if I could do anything to the young me, I wish I would have kept it a little more of a secret. But I mean, I was so popular. It's like one person would see me in the strip club, and it's like my cover is blown anyway. So why not capitalize off it while I can? That's why I only was in the nightlife for like 4 years. That's all I could survive.
So when you say, when you look back at it, there are parts of you that wish you kept it a secret. What do you mean by that?
I feel like a lot of people don't know me in real life. I feel like they go off of like what they see on the internet, and that just gives them like a persona of me. So when they meet me in person, when they see me, they don't know whether to say hi or ignore me, or they don't really know. Meanwhile, I'm just open to like, hey girl, like I'm a girl's girl, but nobody would know that type, you know? But then there's so many other people that approach me in a different way, and then I react in a certain way, and now I look a certain way. And I wish that I wasn't popular, if that makes sense. I wish I wasn't known. I wish I wasn't Mickiee Moscato sometimes. Because I just feel like it just left a stain that is hard to tidy up or clean up. I'm not ashamed of who I am per se, but I am ashamed of my image that other people have of me. Yeah. And I think it's hard to clean that up now that I'm like older.
When you say hard to clean it up, are you talking more like with like, you know, public opinion and things like that?
Everything.
Okay.
I think it's just a whole thing. I mean, even like when people meet me, the first thing I hear people say all the time is like, "Oh my God, I didn't think you were gonna be so nice. I thought you were a bitch." And I'm just like, "Oh, okay." I don't know why you would think that, but I also get why you would think that, because it can get like that with me.
When I think about that period of time, for me, when I think about it as I don't necessarily think about it as a stain, but I do think about it like, like I do think there were things that I learned from working in nightlife. I do think that there were some friendships that I made. However, I do think that there was a lot of just like trauma and dysfunction and things that I look back at it and like I'm very open about where I am with my life right now, where I am with my walk with the Lord. And I look back at it and I'm like, that didn't honor who the Lord, you know, was calling me to be. And so I look back at it now, and obviously we can't change the past. So I'm not a person who looks back and feel like I gotta like, you know, the Lord has done so many amazing things in my life, you know, since then, you know what I mean? And I've been able to grow so much as a person. And quite frankly, I think my experience is a little different because I didn't necessarily put it to the forefront in a way that it was like everywhere I went, it kind of was, you know, that's Dom and Dom, you know what I mean? So I do think it was I think we had those differences in our experiences.
I feel like I was just always so exposed in vulnerable moments. Like when I just kind of wanted to just live in the moment, I couldn't because it was Mickiee this, Mickiee that. Or can I take a picture? Or like I never have, even when I go out with my daughter now, like my daughter's about to be 6, but there's never been a time where I can go out to the mall and somebody doesn't notice who I am. And it's, can I take a picture? And I don't want to be rude. So it's like, I'm like, yeah, but it's like, I kind of want to just be ugly and raunchy and just be in my own little mode. I don't want to take a picture sometimes.
Raunchy was such an interesting term. What made you say that?
My life has just been raunchy. You know.
Do you feel like that's still the word you would use to describe your current life?
I don't think my life is raunchy privately, but my life is still raunchy publicly. I keep up a certain image because it just makes sense for the public, and I'm just one of those people where like you know my real life. In real life, we talk about a lot of things privately, but publicly, I just like them to believe what they see.
Okay. So I have a question. So I hear we've kind of talked about segueing from, nightlife and things like that. That was a period of time, and we've actually been separated from that life for quite some time. Absolutely. At this point.
Yes.
And so, and where you are now, even with your walk, I know, obviously sometimes you post about your beliefs and things like that. When you think about, where you are in your walk with the Lord and things like that, and like just now you've said like, oh, public perception and things like that, and how people may perceive you as like raunchy and things like that. Like, how has that impacted, or how do you feel in like your relationship with the Lord?
I feel like, oh my God, this is such a hard question because I'm talking to you. And we've had these conversations privately, but I'll say it out loud. I feel like God accepts me for who I am. I feel like religion or just a walk with the Lord is not one path. I feel like there's different lanes for different people, and the way that they go about it is on their own, and that's for them to know.
I'd like to talk through the point. I'm a person who, openly professes my beliefs. I do believe that everybody has their own journey to the Lord. I don't believe that there's different paths. I feel like the path is to the Lord. Yeah. I do feel like everyone's journey and how they get there is going to look different. The Lord is doing a different work in, each of our lives. And I know we've talked about these things even when you've, came to the Bible Girls prayer club in the park.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that experience and things like that?
You sure you want to ask me that?
Yeah, I want to, like, coming to the group, what you learned, like.
I love the way that you handled things. I didn't like the way the other lady did.
Well, I'm more so speaking, like, what were your takeaways from the, like, experience of being in the group? Like, I know we've talked about, like, when we did the Women in the Bible and we did the lesson on Esther, and you had a lot of takeaways.
I did have a lot of takeaways from that. I think that you guys presented it very well. I think that there were a lot of intricate moments as far as when we were getting the message that kind of didn't work out. But overall,
when you think about Esther, I guess, so not even from necessarily the perspective of the group. No, but more message. So like the message. Okay. Like when we learned more about Esther and things like that, like what was something that you took away that you felt like was helpful in your journey?
I realized that being a woman is hard, although I already know that, but I seen it, I felt it, I felt the message. I just realized that if I took anything away from it, this is the biggest thing I took away from it, honestly. It was just me realizing that just not using pretty privilege to your benefit at all times. Sometimes it's okay to be the ugly, crusty duckling in the background. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's going to make sense in a second, I promise. But it made me realize, like, sometimes it's okay to just be in the background because people don't pay attention to you that much. And I'm so used to everybody paying attention to me. So being the ugly, crusty duckling in the background makes me feel actually better than anything. And so what I took away from Esther was that she used her beauty and a lot of the things that she had going. The Jezebel spirit.
Ashanti? So the queen in the story.
Yeah, it's just like,
okay,
I don't want to use that anymore. I used it so much, and it did get me a lot, but I wasn't happy with the things that I got from it.
Okay. So for context, guys, we're talking about the story of Esther, and in the story of Esther, they talk about Queen Vashti. I always pronounce her name wrong, y'all. And we did it in the group, and one of the things that they talked about was, the way her husband kind of like wanted to present her, and we talked about like just the context of it was normal during their culture for him to say, hey, like come to this party, and it was a custom for her to go and kind of be looked at and gawked at and things like that. And as we dive deeper into it, we talked about the ways that it can, in the long run, being, you know, someone can choose you for your beauty, a husband could choose you for a beauty, a place can choose you for your beauty, all these different things like that. But if that's the main thing and the only thing that they feel like you have of substance, or whatever, the ways that can be negative for you as a woman, and how when she, you know, decided not to go, yes, that opened up the door, and the Lord paved a way for Esther to come about. But just, you know, in the story, I think it was so great that we all wind up having, you know, some form of, you know, still empathy for the different dynamics for the women in the story.
Yeah.
And one of the main things is, like, when we're reading the word and as we're on our walk and our journey, looking at some of the underlying messages and, you know, what it leads to, obviously, the Lord, and salvation and things like that. And the things he's trying to show us, because I think sometimes people read the Bible and they're like, they don't see all the ways that, like, these are real people going through stuff similar to what we went through. So somebody hearing you say, oh, have a takeaway about pretty privilege, they wouldn't necessarily think like you got a takeaway about pretty privilege or using your body in a certain type of way, and the literal negative effects from that, from the word. But I think because we worked in, you know, nightlife, because we were in positions where it's like, oh, people want to, you know, look at you because of how you look, or, you know, just the whole dynamic of that.
Yeah.
I look back at that now and I'm like, I want no parts. Like, I just want distance from it. You know what I mean? And not in a, like, point fingers at anybody who's still involved or anything like that. No, I literally, like, am praying for y'all. You know me. You know how I get.
And I can actually attest to that, because, like, again, like you said, we've been best friends. We're going on like 10 years now, best friends. Like, when you went on your spiritual journey, you never, like, anytime I called, you answered. Anytime I needed you, you were there. Mm-hmm. You never made me feel bad about myself. You always, like, if anything, if I called you and was crying or like, friend, I'm going through it, you always just spoke life into me. And so that's what I think you make God look good, if that makes sense. Because like, so many people are scared of going on a journey of talking to the Lord or things of that nature, because so many people are also judgmental in the walk of that. You never made me feel weird or like I was wrong or any, like, you were always very firm on your beliefs.
Thank you for saying that.
You always
I do think that there's a line
beliefs,
like you should be firm in what you believe. Like, you should be firm,
always
but you
encouraging
don't have to be
same,
disrespectful. When you are trying to, I feel like the Bible talks about, like, above all, people are going to know us by our love. Mm-hmm. And so I've never wanted to be one of those believers where there's like, oh, I can't be around Dom, I can't talk to Dom because, you know, she make me feel away, or she make me. Literally the way you just felt, like, that was such a blessing to me, because it's like, it's not about me necessarily making God look good, but it's like, I want to be a reflection of the Lord. Like, he calls us to do that. Like, I want to be a reflection of the Lord, and the Lord is kind and loving. And yes, he has boundaries and he has structure and things like that. But above all, he says that people are going to know us by our love. It is not my job to chokehold you or beat you into belief. And I never felt that way. And I love that.
I always felt so comfortable dialing your number and knowing that the voice that was going to answer on the other line was going to be soothing either way. Yeah. No matter what you had to tell me, whether it was about myself or about God or about my situation, one thing you're going to do, you're going to tell me about myself. But you're always kind. Okay, let's get into it.
I think we have had these dynamics in our friendship where people, I don't know, it's like this perception that, like, because we have a love for each other or a loyalty to each other, that it's like this
people can't see me without you.
It's unwavering, but in a toxic way. And I think one interesting dynamic that people eventually learn about us is one reason why our friendship has worked, even though our personalities may be different.
I want to see why it works for you.
Our walks in life may be different. We don't always have to be on the same page or in the same season. I'll say two things of how our dynamic has worked. Is one, for the most part, we always create a safe place for each other to tell each other about ourselves, right?
100%.
So if I feel like
I
Mick
never
is
want to
doing
lie to
something,
you never want to lie to me.
Yeah, if
We've
I feel
always
like,
been honest with each other for years about that.
I
So
think we were
that.
like that since the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think with Mick's personality, with her having her own like following and things like that, and her meeting me, I never was a person that was into all of that. So like I actually saw her, and I know she don't like people saying her name, but for me she was Tam, or for real, she's Petunia. We gave each other new names.
That's the thing, y'all.
Our dynamic worked because I never felt like I was talking to somebody other than a normal person. But I'm a person who's not like, I don't do celebrity. I don't do any of that stuff. And so I feel like our dynamic worked because we always had that baseline of, yeah, friend, no, you was dead wrong. You was dead wrong. Like, you're funny, your jokes, but like, nah, you was wrong. I love you to death. And, you know, you're going to handle it how you want to handle it. But I do feel like the way you started that or the way you did that was wrong. And a lot of people don't have that relationship with her.
Respectfully.
And so, therefore, it feels very foreign that they would think that she's able to have that relationship with somebody else. But that's really why our dynamic works. And quite frankly, I can't stay in friendships long if you can't take loving feedback. That doesn't, like, me and my internal dynamics. And I know some people don't, you know, they may think that's a little much.
I think people need to understand this about you as my friend. I learned with you quickly, and I think that's why our dynamic works as well, is because I could tell you had something to say to me before you even said it. I could use it's all over your face. It's all over your body posture. And so I used to just be like, what, Dom? What I do? And he'd be like, I'm happy you asked because,
like,
and I'd be like, here we go. You
now that
say it, but you know what? I love that you weren't scary, if that makes sense, because a lot of my friendships are built off scariness. They be scared of me, and I don't be getting it because I'm like, I don't put my hands on my friends. I really don't.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, you never were scared. You was like, yeah, I said what I said.
I just feel like I have something to communicate with you. I've thought it over.
I respect it.
I know
but my thing is, if my friends knew, instead of being scared of me, know me. I think you took time to know me before even learning about my aggressiveness or anything, and you kind of are the calm to that. And I think that's what makes us work too. You're the calm to my storm. You could literally talk me out of a lot, and you know that.
Yeah, I think we could go so many ways with that conversation, but I think that was really one of the like foundations of our friendship. And we did go through a season, like we've had that foundation, but me and Mick had got to a season, I think like right around when I was having my second child and Mick was, you know, pregnant. Our kids are 6 months apart, which I don't even think we thought about the dynamics that we were going through a lot of hormones and both in new relationships at the time. But anyway, we had got to a season in time in our relationship where it wasn't working. Like the whole conversing with each other and telling each other, like for whatever reason in that season, it did not work. And I was like, she was unhappy. I was unhappy. It just wasn't working. And we wind up falling out. And a lot of people may not have known that like we fell out for like a year and a half, 2 years. And, you know, we didn't really know what was going to come of the friendship after that. But I think the dynamic of having that period in time and how we chose to handle it. But I think how we chose to handle it really is also a reflection of our personalities. I think it really worked out for us. I think we just had a mutual respect for one another in that moment. Like you said, it was just hormones. We just had so much going on with relationship things and just outside things. Heightened emotions. At that moment, we just chose to walk away from one another. And I think that worked best for us because, I mean, who's to say we probably wouldn't be here today? Yeah, I think you got to think about, like, although you are where you are now, I know who you were then. And I know what me and you could have got into. Yeah, I think that's the dynamic. Why I think walking away was the best because I'm like, I don't want to put my hands on her. I don't want her to put her hands on me. Yep. We never got on Facebook foaming at the mouth, going on live. We never made statuses about each other. We took that year and a half or 2 years, and then I just remember randomly texting you. And
I wasn't blocked. And I was like,
you know, I love blocking people.
You love blocking.
I'm sorry. People be taking it personal. I encourage my clients in therapy to block people in a healthy way, but like that, we're also going to segue into our conversations on boundaries, but I do think there are appropriate times when you just need to block somebody. And
so when I text you, I wasn't blocked. And so
2 years later,
I text you and it went through and you text me back. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it was like the next day or a couple of days after that, we had a full-blown conversation, and then we met up and you got to see Harley and I got to see Grace again. And it was just it was like we never left or fell off. But I think it's because you got to understand, like, the respect is there. At the end of the day, I think the foundation is understanding and respect. Let me put both of those.
Yeah, I think what I've learned in life is foundations do matter.
Mm-hmm. You got to understand what our friendship is built on. Built on something.
I think sometimes, and I think being able to manage like your emotions. And we talk about it, like we have like that. I understand you might talk to other friends about a situation. There's a level of healthy venting that you may need to do with somebody else. And you need to vet that person to make sure like that person ain't, you know, messy or anything like that. I think we've always had like the, you know, the boundaries and the respect for each other that like, I know you're not going to have a conversation about me, whether we were in like deep friendship of our best friendship or after the fact, where you're going to be like dogging me out. Like you're going to be running my business down in the street. And I think when we talk about boundaries and things like that, there's a level of like healthy, having conversation to be like, wow, I'm in discourse with this person right now and that doesn't feel good and, you know, whatever else. And then there's an unhealthy when you go into, because you are in discourse with the person, you got to be talking about them, you got to be dogging them. And first of all, that's just also just not even pleasing to the Lord. So, you know, how can you reconcile with somebody when all you doing is throwing more mess on a messy situation? Yeah. And that worked in our friendship because I felt like we both were just like, pause, I'm not really feeling her right now.
And mind you, I think I take it more to heart in a good way because you know like a lot about me that other people don't know. Mm-hmm. And you never once tried to like throw that in my face or like smear that on my image when you could have. Like I literally gave you the recipe to throw me under the bus and you never did. And so that made me respect you even more. Yeah. And I think that's what it was.
I feel like it's hard for people to come back. I think we were just chatting in the car.
Yeah, it's hard to come back from it.
It's hard to come back from certain things. And I'm totally a believer that the Lord is a restorer and the Lord can like do things in a relationship. I do think sometimes as people, we make it more difficult because it's like we do things to either, you know, people shame other people, and which is so crazy to me because how you going to shame something for something you was with when y'all were in like friendship or relationship or whatever it is? How you gonna shame it now? That's always been, you know, weird to me. But I think how you end and how you start is how you finish. You know what I mean? Yeah. In certain ways. And I think because it wasn't a huge blow up, neither of us do the messy, you know, social media stuff or whatever. We were able to come back and to like reconcile. And I think that we both personally have those boundaries. We both don't do the subliminals because we're very direct people. Like we would rather, I'm just going to say it to you. I don't have to do a subliminal because I have your phone number. So I'm going to call you.
And I think that's why genuinely that's why our friendship worked because
it comes off different the way we may deliver it to people, but at the underlying core
I remember
of it, it's
telling you on the phone how I felt about you one time, and you called me back and you was like, "Friend, I ain't like that," and I was like,
we had that moment. My friend, she felt a way about some choices that I was making in life that I look back and were completely delusional, and she should have told me about myself. But at the time that she was talking to me, let me finish. At the time when you were talking to me, it was just like her delivery was so like
it wasn't no delivery. It was a one-word sentence.
It was It was a lot of words, and they were not friendly words.
I know exactly what I said. I said you're a stupid bitch.
Okay, we trying to.
That's what I said, and then you called me back and you was like, "Friend, I didn't like that." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry. That was so wrong. I shouldn't have said that." But like, you are stupid though. I took the B word off.
I think. Now this is not during the fallout. This is years later.
Oh, this is when we were friends later.
This is just us now working through us now realizing like we can have a situation and it can be big, and we are talking through the situation. We're back to, you know, how we are before, where it's like, you know, we're having those conversations with each other. But this is like in the season where I was definitely becoming more sensitive. So it's like, I don't want you swearing at me. I don't want you calling me stupid.
I didn't know that, yeah. So I realized, I called her to be word, and I shouldn't have.
Yeah, so I had to communicate that.
But
right?
I still kept the stupid.
Yeah, but I had to communicate to you, hey friend, like I'm changing, right?
Yeah.
That bothered me. That bothered me.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that you said it like that.
And you told me.
And I told you.
When I finally digested it, I apologized and I said, you know what?
You did.
If I'm going to continue to be your friend, I have to conform to like what you're doing, and I respect what you're doing. And even though I'm not fully there yet, being your friend means more. And so I can conform the way I talk to you or the way I interact with you with certain things. Yeah. And I'm going to minimize.
And I think that's love though.
Yeah.
I think that is something that speaks of love, where it's like because sometimes you get people who are in the this is just how I am type of way, and it's like, no, we are constantly like evolving and growing, and like the work that the Lord is doing in me, everybody doesn't have to be in that place, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm saying, hey, I'm in this place and I want you to, you know, handle and approach me differently, what I will say is you guys have been a blessing in the sense of like, okay, we're not going to invite Dom here. Okay, we're not going to, you know, talk to Dom like this. Okay, we're going to tone it down, and not in a way that they feel like,
I don't feel like I'm completely like changing myself.
Yeah, but just in a way that's
like our friendship just is moving in a different direction, and you're driving the car, and I'm okay with being a passenger, if that makes sense.
Okay, I think that was really a moment for us where it was like, we are growing, we are maturing even more. Like we've always had this basis, but you know, back when we were in a different part of life, it could have been the, you know, like it was more rough. And in that moment, I shared with my friend, like, hey, I need you to be softer with me in this season. And she heard it, and then she re-delivered it. But I also can look back at that moment now with my own self and say, hey, Dom, you were actually being delusional. You were not using discernment, and your friend, although she delivered it in a way that you wish
I delivered would have been very softer. Wrong. I'm sorry.
However, the message was the message. And so at the time, I couldn't see the love and the sense of urgency in what she was saying. And now on the other side of the thing she was warning me was very not smart in the ways it has impacted my life. I said, wow, she loves me. She may not have had the best language at the time, but she was trying to alert me to something that I wasn't even seeing as danger myself. Yeah. She's just like, do you not know where you just came from? Do you not know where the Lord... I wish you could deliver it like this, but this is the gist. I'm giving the down version of what she was saying. Do you not know where the Lord just delivered you from? Do you not know what he just got you out of?
You about to walk into swampy waters?
Like, you literally just got delivered. Is that... So to her, she, you know, really wanted to say, like, your discernment, what is not clicking? It's not clocking for you, Dom. You know, but it was delivered in a different way. But what we've learned, though, is that it was still valuable what she was saying, even if the language didn't necessarily match what I needed. And I've learned that.
And I also learned in that moment too, it's like the way I gave the message originally, and then when you corrected me or told me the way to move forward with you, when I re-delivered the message, I delivered it the same way, but just the way you preferred it. And you taught me something. It's like I can give a message, but I can give it nicely.
Yes. I think we're constantly...
I do have to talk more gentle.
Learning from, you know, each other in that way.
I am very aggressive. I think just where I come from, like my upbringing, you know, like, I think you telling me just to be calmer and softer with the way I talk or like the way I deliver things, like I'm very much just like, ugh. And now I just got to be like, you know. And I have a daughter now, so it's like, even talking to her, sometimes I catch myself like, you being a little too hard on her, I ain't gonna lie, like, calm down. I do got to be softer. So I think that was just like on the money as far as just like it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I think that's what it comes from.
It's how you say it. Yeah. And I think even what you said earlier about like when I deliver things to you and how you don't feel like I'm like bashing you over the head with the Bible and stuff like that. I think it's because I've learned that you are supposed to deliver things with grace and truth, right? Mm-hmm. So I can deliver a truth to you. You can deliver a truth to me, but it should really still be done within a graceful way, in a way that is still respectful to the person,
and
in
let
a way
the person
that's still
receive
loving.
it without because if something just feels like off to me, I'm just gonna automatically be like, So like you want to deliver something that people feel automatically receiving and just ready to
or they
take
think
in.
on it later, because I feel like even that example that we were just talking about, it still took me a little bit to like simmer on what you were saying to me, and you know, I think had I not been so focused on the delivery and I would have just sat with the underlying message of what you were saying, maybe things would have been different. But I think either way, one thing I could say is when I look back post doing the delusional thing,
right,
I can actually look back and be like, I don't enjoy the way that my friend handled this. I don't enjoy the way that she did everything about it, but I can say that she loved me. And she wanted me to know that, like, I was absolutely being delusional.
If it means anything, it's not even that I loved you. It's that I knew I was going to have to listen to you cry on the phone later. And I definitely did with that same situation.
I mean,
no, but I was just, I'm like, can we avoid, I don't want to hear you cry. I don't want to see you sad. So let me just call you stupid now. So that maybe if I call you stupid, then this person can't treat you stupid, and then you can't be stupid and just
but it wasn't clicking. It wasn't clocking at the time.
But I get why I sounded wrong, but I also know why I said what I said, because I'm like, I can't even be nice with this lady right now with this situation because she's already been stupid enough times in this situation.
Yeah. I think this is a good segue into like saying how we were talking about like boundaries, because pretty much what that conversation was like, yes, the delivery wasn't exactly how I got it, but then terrible. I came back to you and I said, hey, this is a boundary for me. Like, I love you. You're my friend. I didn't like how you said that. And I think it was a good example in relationships of like, a boundary is not a wall. A boundary is something that brings you closer. It has the opportunity.
It's understanding.
Yes,
again, it brings me back to understanding
in a safer way.
And foundation.
Yeah.
Too.
So it's saying, hey, I don't want to push you off. I don't want to not be in a relationship.
I don't want to not be your friend, but I want you to just handle me a certain way. And if you can't do that, then I get it. And now we're not friends.
But the thing is, before you even get to that place in boundaries, like before we even get to the like, I'm gonna have to cut you off, I think it's like you said, the first place is I want to understand you and I want this relationship to be safe. And so the boundary isn't a wall and it's not an ultimatum. It's to say, hey, how can we do this dynamic, safe, together, and understanding and with love? And so I think we've learned boundaries, right? And we've learned how to navigate each other. Our relationship hasn't been peaches and cream. We have moments where we're not on the same page. We have moments where it's like, I kind of wish you could have did this, or you could have been around for this. Like, we are not perfect people. We are still two imperfect people in relationship. And I think sometimes there have been times in our friendship where outside looking in, people would be like, I don't know how y'all even, still friends. But the one thing I will always give Mick, I don't like everything that she does. We don't always have to be on the same page. Sometimes she do stuff and I'm like, I wish she would not have done it like that, or I wish she could have been. But what I will say is we've learned the dynamic of like, when I do get to the place and I deliver something to Mick, she might not always get it on that exact day. She might not. But I can't say there has been a time where she doesn't come back later. And she's like, oh, okay, friend, I shouldn't have handled that like that, or I should have been there, or, whatever the thing is. She comes back. And to me, that's the type of friendship that I want. I don't want a friendship where you feel like because you're present and sometimes or this, that, and the third, but then when we have to do the difficult stuff, you can't have like accountability, or you feel like you got to brush that off, or you can't come back and say, I'm wrong. There's times with her where I have to come back and say, hey, I was wrong for that, right? I think that is friendship. I think that's relationship, whether it's friendship, whether it's marriage, whether it's, whatever it is.
No, and you got to understand, though, like, a lot of people can't have the friendship that we have because they don't have me or you in the equation. You got to understand, having accountability takes somebody to feel vulnerable with and be comfortable saying, I'm sorry, or saying like, I was wrong. It's not hard for me as your friend coming to you and saying, you know what, I was wrong, because I feel safe.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes a little time, but she get there, y'all.
Yeah.
But she do it eventually. But you're right. But
you got to also...
The backbone of friendship.
From somebody that is the more aggressive or crazy friend, it doesn't always feel safe where I'm at, or like the spaces that I'm in. You know, I come from a lot, so
yeah,
it feels safe telling you, you know what, girl, okay, I was wrong, whatever.
Yeah, I think because I do my best not to be a shamer, right?
Yeah.
So if you got to come to me in a vulnerable moment and take accountability and be like, oh, okay, I was wrong. If it's something deeper for us to talk about, of course, we're going to talk about it. But I'm not the person that now every single time, remember that one time you like, that's just not my personality.
There's never been a time in our friendship that you've ever brought anything from the past back up in my face that I know of. And you've been through a lot with me.
We've been... I will also give my friend this version of Dom that you guys get. You guys know what I call like compartmentalized Dominique, right? So some of you guys may know me from like mental health. Some of you may know me from working in education.
I know
some people know me from business.
I know the real
Some people know me from just all the different places in that I've worked or been. It's not even just work, in life. And I feel like Mick got to see certain vulnerable sides of me and never made me feel away for not being this show up having all the answers Dominique, because I don't have all the answers, and I tell people that. And I'm really in the season where it's like I trust in the Lord for my wisdom. I don't have all the answers, and I'm at a season now where I'm okay with that. I don't have to have all the answers. I just have to know the one who does. But I think in our friendship, there was this season in my life where I was a mess. There was a season in my life where I was just a mess, and it's like Mick didn't judge that side of me that other people may not have been privy to or to see. She didn't judge that side of me that other people may not have seen. I feel like even as she sits here and she says like, oh, she's the more aggressive one, I feel like, okay, maybe for a good part, but there definitely was a season in which I was going through a lot of things.
Girl, and I was always more aggressive than you, and you know that.
No, but when I say aggressive, I mean like there definitely were times where it's like Mick would be more like chill or whatever.
Okay, no, you know what? I'm happy you're saying that, because now let's get to that, because people don't know this about me, but like Dom back in her day, we love to say back in her day because she's different now, and I love that for her, but people don't know this about Dom, but Dom don't ask questions. She just pop off. Because I'm the type to ask questions first and then get aggressive. Dom don't ask no questions.
Back in the period of time where I was going through the things that I was going through, I will already have asked the questions. So it's not that I don't ask questions.
No, Dom.
The questions already were asked. So by the time
on people's backs.
Because the questions were already asked and the things were already stated. And I thank the Lord, for the way he has grown me. And the way that, at the times where I'm mad, she's really laughing like this, because I didn't always have like the emotional intelligence or the self-control that I have now early on in our friendship. And we were in some situations where it's like, well, I done said it again. All right, because now you're committed to doing what you're doing, like you're aware of it. And I ain't like that, but the Lord, has done a work in me. I don't get to tussling with people. I'm not rolling around in the rocks with you. I don't think anybody need to be rolling around in the rocks with, nobody. I'm a firm believer in sending people to the slammer. And I thank the Lord.
Oh, you love to call 911 on people now.
I don't love to do it because I don't want nobody in I don't want nobody in that place, but baby, if you being unsafe, hey, I don't know what to tell you. I don't walk that life. I don't live that life, you know? And I don't participate in those activities. And I thank the Lord for the way that he has grown me, because there was a season, like when we're just being serious, there was a season where as much as she got a lot of flank for being aggressive or fighting or things like that because people knew her, I do think I was extended a little bit of grace because people didn't really know that
they overlooked her doing the shit that she did. And
the language.
They overlooked her doing the things that she did. Whole time I wasn't doing half of the things that she was doing, but
as far as like getting into fights,
they nailed me to the cross. Like that, they nailed me to the cross.
I was a little bit more, you know what you did? I tried to talk to you about it. Okay, I guess that's where we are. You know, and that was not a good way to be. That was absolutely not a good way to be.
But I am very proud of your change.
Yeah.
But I just can't believe that they really put that on my name and not yours. And the evidence was there.
No, I think that's the difference. Is like I wasn't in the whole, no one would be thinking to, I think you talked about earlier, like how certain things with you are not private. Like people might be more amped to like pull out a phone if you're getting into a situation. I didn't necessarily have that problem. And so I think that's the difference of the situations. It's like, no, like the situations may have happened, they may have whatever, but it was a level of grace that people weren't thinking to pull out a phone or record those type of moments.
It was recorded.
No.
The Britney fight.
I don't know who that lady, who is that? No, I mean, we could talk about that later. I don't know who that is. The whole point was to say.
Lola?
Oh, no. It was not. But the whole point of that is because I don't get into like, when I look back at things that I used to do, I'm not a person who's like, I don't feel like the Lord is calling us to walk around just in this eternal place of shame. No, I believe that the Lord is forgiving and he's kind, but I do also have a reverence for the Lord where it grieves me to think that I was in a period of time in life where I thought that the answer to handling problems was to get into a physical altercation. That grieves me. Like, to just think about that, like, it really does. It grieves me because it's like,
but I mean, I get the grieving part of it, but I don't think it should, because like you got to understand like how many people you motivated to be better too, just with the things that you did wrong.
I think being able to see like someone be honest and be like, yes, I used to be fighting, I used to be swearing, I used to work at the strip club, and all these things like that. I do think me being so honest and upfront about, hey, this is the reality of the things that occurred in my life, right? Yeah. I am a preacher's kid. And I don't say that in like any type of like pass off. I say that to say, when I talk about the things that I went through and I'm, having these conversations to talk about like the different dynamics, it's to say like, I share and I have these conversations because I want you to see the work that the Lord has done in my life, right? Mm. I don't say it for clout. I don't say it because I think it's funny. I don't say it because it doesn't cause me, a grief, but I share it to show you where I came from. And it's this specific conversation we're having now might be a dynamic you didn't even know existed about me. I think a lot of you guys are used to seeing Life with Coach Dom, and you're used to seeing the motivational stuff. You're used to seeing, community
but this really
stuff.
My friend. You see my friend. Yeah, you're seeing like transparent you. I think you're giving in this moment. I think you're giving a lot more than what people like really can see on the surface.
Yeah, I think people assume I haven't had things.
I think you should just be very proud of like from where you've came and where you're at.
I'm thankful. If I think of a word of where I'm really thankful to the Lord. And I think even we can talk about it briefly. Like, as someone who's read my book,
I was just gonna bring that up, but I didn't know how to.
I made a poetry book about complex trauma, and things like that. And I think it's a good example of, sometimes people see me and they think that like this pretty polished version of me, when there's so much depth there that is more than probably the average person can handle. But as someone who has, one, me, but also there are parts in the books from...
Friend, I couldn't read past, I think, the first 5 pages. I haven't read past it. I can't. I break down a lot.
Yeah.
Reading it. It's a lot to take in, and just knowing you as my friend and knowing what you went through, it's hard to look at you and not just want to hug you every time I see you. But I get that you don't want to be coddled. You didn't write the book for sympathy. You wrote the book to tell your story, and a lot of people can empathize with you. And honestly, I can empathize with it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. When you think about the books and the part you have been able to make, plus there's a disclaimer at the beginning. When you think about the parts that you read, what were the parts that you identified with most that you felt like helped you even realize things about like yourself?
I don't think anything made me realize anything about myself because I've always been like understanding about like what I went through. If anything, though, the way I could relate to it was just knowing that, like, I think being a mom really changed my perspective on everything in life. Knowing that once we were little girls and nobody was kind of there to protect us.
Yeah.
I think for me as a mom, it made me go into full blown, like, I can't have my daughter go through what me and Dom went through.
Yeah.
I think it made me a little more protective. Knowing that me and you went through the same type of things as little girls, and knowing that we weren't really even looking for that type of attention, but we still got it from people that we actually cared about and trusted. I think that's kind of where it's like, my daughter goes with her cousins and her dad, and these are people that I can trust, but I know how it feels to be violated by somebody that I trust too. And so I think the way that I just went about it was I read it, and that's why I couldn't go much further, because I'm like, not only am I looking at my friend in a vulnerable way, but I feel vulnerable too. And I know how this feels, and I know exactly everything that she's writing. I know how this feels. It's not just words in a book. Yeah. I felt it. So I couldn't go past page 5 for me. Yeah. It was a lot.
I think when I wrote it, I definitely wanted people to be able to identify with that feeling, and to see like this is a real thing that is happening and occurring in the way that it plays a role down the line. I do think some of those experiences, I do think some of those experiences and stuff played a role into, later experiences and things like that.
Of course, yeah.
But what I will say is I hope that at some point you do pick it back up, because I think although it can be a heavy read, as you progress through it, it does get to the point of being on the other side of the traumatic experiences. Yeah, it gets lighter. And it's a lot of ebbs and flows in the book where it talks about real experiences, and things like that. But it also has light, because that's how life is. We go through these dark periods of time. We go through these traumatic things. But, like, the Lord is faithful. And coming out on the other side of it, when I think about, like, the ways, like, I've been kept and the ways I've been able to go on and do positive things despite the things that I experienced, I think that is kind of, like, my goal of the book in the series. And so we're going to start to wrap up. So anything you want to share about yourself or?
Not really. I'm just really thankful that you brought me here. I'm happy we got to have this conversation publicly, because so many people don't understand our friendship. And, I mean, it's not that it's for them to understand, but I'm happy that me and you can do this. I'm happy to see the way you've grown. I'm just happy to be your friend, and watching you grow is beautiful, and that's all I need. Just you as my friend.
Thank you. I feel the same with you. I feel like you're on your journey, and I pray and I tell the Lord on you all the time, and she be like, friend, I be like, I tell the Lord on my friends all the time. I will go talk to our Father about you. I don't care what it takes to get you to where you need to be, because I will, and I'm going to keep praying for you. But thank you for coming. And
of course, thank you for having me. No, I enjoyed it too. And it was just, being around you just makes me happy. I just feel all warm. And
thank you. Thank you guys for joining us on this episode of Conversations for the Culture, Kingdom Edition. You guys can follow us on social media, Dominique Johnson, Coaching for the Culture. Instagram, Life with Coach Dom. And we are going to also be on YouTube at Life with Coach Dom. Thanks again.